But as Michael Corleone said in The Godfather, sometimes they pull me back in. Sometimes I can't help. I can't help but spout off. I am a politician after all, ladies and gentlemen. But the thing that I've tried to remind people of, and the thing that I try to remind myself of, is that what attracted me to the Christian faith and what attracted me to this church in particular is the recognition that grace is not something that happens instantaneously. It's something that God works in us over a long period of time, sometimes many years and sometimes many decades. You know, I think that when I was a kid, my assumption is that grace is something where the Holy Spirit would come in and it would solve all of our problems. And I learned the hard way as a Catholic, in part by following the sacramental life as best as I could, that grace is very much a process, that God works in us over time. He makes us closer to Him and makes us better people in the process. And so when I first became a Catholic, you know, I would probably go to confession every other week because I would fail to go to Mass every other week. And, you know, things would come up. You'd have business trips. You'd have, you know, the kids would get sick. And I just remember that this process of thinking, okay, if I don't go to church this week, I'm going to have to go and talk to some stranger about everything that I did bad the last 2 weeks. And that process worked in me a much better discipline, a much better prayerful life. And, you know, I'm batting probably like 95% of Sundays now that I actually go to Mass. And so, you know, this is I think, one of the geniuses, thank you. I think this is one of the geniuses of our faith, is that it teaches us through repetition in some ways, and it forms us through a process, of course, that is, I think, at the heart of the mystery of faith, that somehow by practicing the sacraments, even imperfectly, as I certainly do, God transforms us. And while I am as imperfect a Christian as any person in this room, I really do feel that God is transforming me every single day. And that's one of the great blessings of our faith and one of the great blessings of following the sacraments as I try to do. And so thank you all for welcoming a convert into your ranks, because I certainly benefit from it, and my family does too. You know, the second thing that I take from my Catholic faith is a recognition that the deepest and most important things are not material, they're not GDP, they're not the numbers that we see in the stock market. The real measure of health in a society is the safety and stability and the health of our families and of our people. We are in the business, of course, we're in the business of President Trump's administration of producing prosperity, but that prosperity is a means to an end. And that end is the flourishing, hopefully, of the life of every single citizen in the United States of America. That's why we care about these things. And, you know, I often remind myself that, you know, there have been times in the past where, you know, the GDP numbers were maybe moving in the right direction, where the stock market was moving in the right direction, but the United States of America was losing life expectancy. I think that what the Catholic Church calls me to do is to say that if the stock market's doing okay, but people are literally dying and losing years off of their life, then we have to do better as a country. Catholicism, Christianity, at its root, I think teaches our public officials to care about the deep things, the important things, the protection of the unborn, the flourishing of our children, and the health and the sanctity of our marriages. And yes, we care about prosperity, but we care about prosperity so that we can promote the common good of every citizen in the United States of America. And when I think about the deep things, the things that really matter, there was something really amazing that happened to me in November of 2024. All my friends were there, all my family was there. We were gathered together in a great moment of celebration. And of course, I'm talking about when my 7-year-old chose to be baptized into the Christian faith. And Ewan is at school right now, so he won't see this, but as amazing as it was to win the election, of course, in November of 2024, and as amazing as it was to know that President Trump would become president again and would get to accomplish so many good things for the American people, the thing that I was most excited about in November of 2024 is that the week after we won the election, my son chose to be baptized in the Christian faith. Now, here's the basic idea, and for those of you, of course, you all mostly are cradle Catholics, I assume, and typically we do water baptism of infants in the Catholic Church very, very early on. But as many of you know, I am part of an interfaith marriage. My wife, though she comes to church with us almost every single Sunday, she is not Catholic herself. And so the bargain that we have struck is that we will raise our kids Catholic, but we will let them choose the moment that they want to ultimately become baptized. And if that's terrible sacrilege, blame the Dominicans, because they're the